Hi, and I apologize for those jackhammers if you can hear them. Today is March 20th, 2023. Here are my poems for the day. The first one is poem number 470 for the year, Maggie, 60. Maggie Estep would have been 60 today. She saved my life. Wish I could have done the same for her. Poem number 471, Gone. It sucks that Maggie Estep is gone. It would be fun to tell her, yo, I'm writing poetry every fucking day and it's blowing my fucking mind, the shit I come up with sometimes. She might have said, fuck me, I want to try that too. Fuck Me was a poem title that I came up with back in the late 80s, and I decided I couldn't write it. I felt like it had to be written by a woman. I was self-conscious and man-hating and self-hating and so on. So I offered her the title, and she took it and she ran with it. I read her poem, Fuck Me, at her memorial in Hudson in 2014. A few years after she wrote Fuck Me, she and I were talking, and I said, oh, so I have a stalker now. She was jealous. I want a stalker. How did you get a stalker? I want a stalker. And I don't remember which one of us said that she should write a poem called Stalk Me, but she did write a poem called Stalk Me, and I read that at her memorial too. Maggie used to say to me, be careful what you write, because what you write comes true. But I don't think she ever got stalked. She definitely got fucked. She was brilliant and beautiful, and who wouldn't want to fuck her? And when she died, we all felt kind of fucked. Fuck me, Maggie Estep. I wish you weren't gone. Poem number 472, Law and Order. One time Maggie called me and she was like, do you know anyone who works on Law and Order? I want to be on Law and Order. And I was like, you should be on Law and Order. It's stupid that you haven't been on Law and Order yet. But she never got to be on Law and Order. Maybe she should have written a poem about being on Law and Order, because maybe not all the time, but sometimes what you write comes true. Poem number 473, Marathon. But another time, Maggie called me distraught, and she was like, why don't they have me on the Poetry Project's New Year's Day Poetry Marathon anymore? And I said, you're right. It's stupid that you're not on it anymore. They must have taken you off the list, and once you're off that list, they forget about you and they never bring you back. But at that time, I happened to be president of the board of directors of the Poetry Project, so I managed to get her on one last time before she died. And if she were alive today, I might have called her last November distraught and said, they didn't ask me to do the New Year's Day Poetry Marathon again. And she would have said, it's stupid that they stopped asking you. Don't they know how many poems you've written this year? And some of them are even good. And I would have said, it's like I say, once you're off the list, you're off the list, and they forget about you. And she would have said, but you were president of the board of directors. And I would have said, I know, but what the fuck can I do? I guess they just don't like what I do. And maybe she would say, maybe you should write a poem about it. And I would say, I have written poems about it. In fact, I'm writing one right now. And she would say, no, this is not a poem about being asked to do the marathon. This is a poem about not being asked. Maybe they stopped asking you because you keep writing poems about not being asked. Because what you write comes true. I've told you that before. Why don't you fucking listen to me? And then maybe I would be like, you're right. I should stop writing about not being asked to do the marathon anymore. I should write about how happy I am to have been asked to do it for like 20 years in a row. And then she'd probably be like, they asked you to do it 20 years in a row? And I would probably say, well, 11 of those years I was on the board, so they had to. Although one year they asked board members to offer not to do it, and I agreed, and I wrote a poem about not doing it. And then maybe she would say, maybe that's how it started. And I would say, maybe. And then she would probably say, well, I've got to go. And maybe I would have said, I love you, Maggie Estep. But maybe I wouldn't have. If I wouldn't have, I should have. And last poem of the day, poem number 474, Still Here. If Maggie were still here, I wouldn't be able to call her up and say, hey, Maggie, all the poems I wrote today are about you because I miss you so fucking much. Because I wouldn't have written 5 poems about her today if she hadn't died 9 years ago. If Maggie were still alive, I could call her up and say, happy birthday. And she would maybe say, what's happy about it? I'm fucking 60. And I would maybe say, what the fuck difference does it make? You're still brilliant and still hotter than hell. And then maybe I would thank her for putting me in that Hey Baby video and for saving my life by telling me what I had to do in order to stop doing drugs and for hooking me up with that place on Avenue C after she moved out of it. That place was awful, but cheap as fuck. And maybe she would thank me for the marathon thing, and I would apologize for not getting her on Law and Order. But I'm being stupid, because obviously Maggie is still here. She's gone, but she's still here. She had a couple of conversations with me just today, She is so much still here that she superseded the Amish market poems. They will have to wait until tomorrow. Happy birthday, Maggie Estep. I wish you were still here, but I'm glad you are still here. All right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Maggie. I love you. And thank you all. I appreciate you.